The police found the ransacking extremely suspect.
That's what they said.
They're putting it all together, and it's an incredibly compelling case. If you were watching LA Law or something on TV, you would be convicting this person, almost certainly. Most people think you're guilty. Why should we believe that you're not?
Because of the things that weren't looked at, I was convicted on absolutely no physical evidence whatsoever. They found fingerprints and footprints that were never matched to anybody that belonged to strangers. There was no DNA, no evidence on that firearm that resembled me at all.
All right, I'm going to go first on this one. So when he says, why should we believe you? The answer is because I'm not a murderer. I wouldn't do something like that. I'm not that kind of person. That's not me. I don't do that. That's the answer you give, not a long drawn out thing about evidence and these other things that go down to the analytical side of it. You're not there. You say, I'm not that kind of person. That's why I wouldn't do that. That's where you go with that. As we go through this, we see a picture of the bathroom, and we see pill bottles in the pill chest or whatever's been gone through behind the mirror, and the pill bottles are laying everywhere. That's not what happens. When somebody goes through your pill chest, when somebody breaks into your house to steal stuff, what they do is they go in the bedroom and they'll get a pillowcase and they'll get a sheet or the top blanket off the bed. And that's what they throw everything on, and they wrap it up and they leave with that like Santa Claus. So those pills wouldn't be laying on the floor. They're not pulling them out, looking at them. Oh, this isn't what I need. This isn't what I need. They go through and they just pull it all into a pillowcase and they leave with that. That's why they found that suspect. That's what was wrong with that. Odd wording in this when she starts talking about the DNA. And I know we all talked about this earlier, and we all thought this was funny. Which is there was no DNA, there was no evidence on that firearm. She never says gun. She says firearm. She's separating herself from the gun. Now, who calls it a firearm? Who talks like that? And then she says, no evidence on that firearm that resembled me at all. That's weird. That's weird. Again, she's separating herself. That resembled me at all. Nothing on that gun that resembled me. I've never heard that before in my life. That is weird. That's weird to hear. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, so I think you're starting now to see a pattern. I think she started off telling a story, and her pattern now is going to be an attorney. She is suddenly going to be, excuse my English, and you can bleep this a little bit if you want. In the Army, we would call that a house lawyer. And she's going to give everybody advice. She's going to know how this works. She'll shift gears and go into jargon. She'll speak legalese, something that's not real, but she feels like sounds real. It's like when people use the wrong pronouns because they're trying to be pretentious, and they go him and I or he and I at the inappropriate times. And you start to see that shift. She's trying to appear to be more presentable. And she's clearly aware that she may or may not be presentable at this point. He also, we don't have it in this video, but Piers Morgan made her cry because he said, your mother thinks you killed him. There's a pretty good indicator. Usually when your mother says, I think she might have done it. She said, I had not looked. There was no physical evidence. That's what they said. You see, she's starting to distance from anything that has expertise or anything else. And I think she's creating a campaign here by saying I agree with you. Average people don't call guns firearms. Firearms are things cops call them, or murder weapons, or those kinds of things. And she's picking up on those words because she's trying to have credibility. When a person overextends himself into a new space, and maybe she does this all the time, it might be in her personality, but when a person overextends themselves into new language, Scott, you and I both know when people use medical jargon or legal jargon, what's that a red flag of? Psychopaths, they always want to blend in and fit, and they try to fit right in that business. So I'm not going to go any further than that. She's trying to create reasonable doubt in the legal term, like she's back at trial. That's what I think she's doing. So from that, Chase, what do you got?
So there's one thing that every interrogator learns when you first start out, maybe your first day of class. A failure to make a strong positive denial is a gigantic red flag. I didn't do it. I don't care. I don't have to prove myself. I didn't do it. There's no possible way I would ever do something like this. That's a strong, confident, positive denial that I didn't do this thing. And we see a chin thrust here, a nice big one, when he's starting to bring the topic up. And this is indicative of disdain or sometimes contempt. But it's in the primate world. We are primates. All primates will expose the neck to show that I'm not threatening. But this is also to challenge the other person out of anger. So we see drunk idiots in a bar who are about to get into a fight. Their chin goes up, their arms come out. We see all these vital organs getting exposed to show I'm not afraid of you. So we see that here. But there's two things here I want you to really pay attention to for the rest of this entire YouTube video. I want you to watch if somebody killed someone that's close to you, God forbid, you'd be really, really concerned about the perpetrator. You would talk about them. You would mention them. When you wouldn't say, I don't know how the gun got in the car, you'd say, I don't know who put the gun in the car. The conversation would be about the perpetrator and not an action. And we'll uncover some more of this in just a minute. Mark?
Yeah, so in our last video, what you'd have seen is plenty of chin down to Chase's point. And so in this one, and in the last one as well, as I think Scott was saying, lots of mentions of herself, okay? In this video, where Piers comes in and says, why should we believe you? He starts to put into question herself. And at that point, once herself is questioned, up comes the chin, and the response to that confrontation is, I would say, arrogance, which is to say, you cannot question me. I am untouchable. Here are my kill points. Yeah, you're not going to get me. It's an extreme difference. I want you to go back and look at where the head is placed for the predominance of that first video, and look where the head is placed on that second video, and realize that the question is, why should we believe you? And see what effect that has. Now, I even checked the camera angle to make sure the camera, as it came from Piers, didn't dip down, that it might make it look like that. The camera, the person on the camera is getting exactly the same height, not gone underneath. So it's definitely a big display to that questioning that person around believability. I'll leave it at that.
I think the two of you are on to something, the bar fight, and that's who you're seeing. That's a scrapper throwing their chin up, prepared for what you're at. That's the reason the chin goes up with her. I have that in my notes.
Yeah. Well, when arrogance happens, the person believes that they're untouchable. Yeah. It's basically to say, when you do it in close proximity, within striking distance, you're saying, I don't think you're going to attack. I don't think you've got it. I don't think you have anything. Yeah. And that's what's beautifully arrogant about it, especially when you've got somebody with power in front of you. And Piers has some power. She doesn't think he has any power.
Yeah, we see that a couple of times later on as well, in a couple of videos. So that's we'll point those out at that time too. Yes, I totally agree with you. Yeah.
The police found the ransacking extremely suspect.
That's what they said.
They're putting it all together, and it's an incredibly compelling case. If you were watching LA Law or something on TV, you would be convicting this person, almost certainly. Most people think you're guilty. Why should we believe that you're not?
Because of the things that weren't looked at. I was convicted on absolutely no physical evidence whatsoever. They found fingerprints and footprints that were never matched to anybody that belonged to strangers. There was no DNA, no evidence on that firearm that resembled me at all.
If you like this video, get the full body language breakdown and analysis on our main channel by clicking this video right here.